Like you can't leverage product-led growth without intimately knowing your customers. And by intimate, I don't mean their spouse's name. Intimate as in what actually matters to them. We talked in a previous episode, like, I talk to my customers all the time. I know my customers. But like, no, you have to know specifically what parts of your product deliver value and what is it about that aspect of the product and how could you surface that to them and in what order, right? Because it's not just one feature that it matters to your customers. And you have to do the work to find out what those product levers are in order to leverage product-led growth in a way that isn't going to, not to be hyperbolic, kill your business. Welcome to the Forget the Funnel podcast, where our goal is to help you as a SaaS leader finally stop guessing, understand your best customers, and drive more predictable recurring revenue. We're Gia and Claire, founders of Forget the Funnel, a product marketing and growth consultancy that helps SaaS businesses learn from their best customers, map and measure their experiences, and unlock their best levers for growth. So if you're looking to help your team make smarter decisions, this show is for you.
So today we're talking about a pretty big topic. And even in the preparation for this conversation, you mentioned most of the companies you're working with right now are in the thick of this. So we're talking about moving from a sales-led approach to a more product-led approach. And in particular, some of the things that we want to cover are why might a company consider making that transition? Like, when does that make sense? What are some of the difficulties, of which you and I both know there are many, and they go far beyond the quality or the current state of the product itself? And then what are the actual steps? What does starting to make that transition look like? So to kick us off, if you could explain some of the fundamental differences between sales-led and product-led for the purposes of our conversation today. How do you think about the differences between those two approaches?
I tend to think about these like product-led, sales-led, marketing-led, customer-led, community-led. I've heard of like design-led. I tend to think of them as like, where is the company looking to for the most amount of growth? So in organizations that rely on the product to generate growth and revenue, you would call them product-led. For companies who are really looking to sales to generate the majority of growth and revenue, you would call them sales-led. Similarly with marketing-led, where it's all about like bringing in more leads and inbound and creating that demand. Community-led, slightly different too. I was recently having a conversation around using community for growth and like acquisition versus using community for customer expansion and further monetization, retention. Exactly. Which is really interesting. And then I think we'd be remiss to not also obviously talk about customer-led growth and how we see customer-led growth, because there are a couple different versions of that happening right now as well. So we think customer-led growth as like leveraging customer insight and intelligence and knowledge and understanding and clarity to drive more growth across the entire customer experience. And so that might mean that what you learn about customers is like, oh, we've got this opportunity to lean into the product over here. And oh, we've learned that our customers actually need a human and a higher touch over there. Or so basically we think of customer-led growth as being the sort of foundational level of figuring out what other growth models do you want to leverage and can you leverage and in what capacity. So hopefully that was helpful in not just answering the difference between product-led and sales-led, but also how do you find out is really ultimately at the end of the day, knowing more about your customers. And anyways, that's how we think about customer-led growth.
So I want to hear from you. What are some of the broad or the high-level signs that might indicate it's time for a company to consider introducing a more product-led approach? Two companies I'm working with are at a point where they need to move away from founder-led sales. And so they're great candidates for this, but that's just one.
Yeah. A close follow to they need to move away from founder-led sales is probably, these are very related, probably a recognition that the cost to acquire a customer is too high right now and that there's an opportunity to lower the cost to acquire customers. That is definitely one. I think that in general, the SaaS industry is looking to lower the cost of acquisition. It is really expensive. Traffic is real expensive, especially targeted traffic is very expensive these days. And so a lot of companies are thinking about ways to lower the cost of acquisition. And product-led growth or leveraging product-led strategies or leveraging the product to acquire customers can go a long way because you're lowering the barrier to entry by allowing people into the product. So yeah, the cost of acquisition is too high. Outbound, again, they're related, or you might be in both of these situations where outbound is not working as well as it used to, is more costly than it used to be, and it just isn't a sustainable sort of channel anymore. And you may also be experiencing some inbound interest just like organically, or maybe your marketing team is doing a great job of bringing people to the website, and you want to provide those people with an opportunity to see behind the curtain in a, again, lowering the barrier to allowing them to do that and not necessarily putting it behind a conversation with another human relying on a calendar.
That one,
Yeah.
but I do think that's directly related to the other small examples you gave. So traffic is expensive. So giving the people who arrive at your site more opportunities to take action, particularly if there's a hypothesis that people coming to your product aren't ready to be on a call with sales yet. I think that's a really good example.
And that's actually a perfect tee up to the next one, which is you may have noticed a shift from a purely economic buyer championing your product internally to a technical buyer. So a lot of the sales led teams and SaaS that we've worked with have been highly technical products with highly technical buyers. And so they know that technical people, like marketers, like we all hate being marketed to, but technical buyers especially hate being marketed
particularly
to.
Allergic.
Particularly allergic.
Yeah.
Allergic to marketing. And if they're allergic to marketing, they're allergic to sales too. If your primary champion is more the manager level or operational and less technical, then that might not be your situation. But for many of the companies that we've been working with, there's been a technical buyer who has been meaning the person who is experiencing the pain that your solution solves, the person who is tasked with solving that problem. If that champion for you is a technical buyer, you better be leveraging your product to acquire them. Another situation would be you've got new competitors in your space that they've provided your target customer with an amazing experience without talking to sales. And all of a sudden, that market that was available to you and that direct competitor goes to that competitor because they can validate that the competitor's tool is going to be the one that can solve their problem. And they can't do that without getting on a call with you. So it might take them 3 days to get on a call with somebody in your sales team, and it took them 15 minutes to get into the product and validate. Another one would be that you see an opportunity down market. I've actually talked to a number of folks in this situation too, where they've been predominantly sales led over the years. Like they started as sales led, they sell into enterprise, they love them, they got a great sort of motion going there, but they know that there is an opportunity to move down market as well because their product is very self-serve friendly, or aspects of their product is self-serve friendly. And they're like, these like smaller companies could be getting a ton of value. Do we want to provide them with like hours of support and super high touch onboarding? Absolutely not. But if they can be successful self-serve, have at it.
Great.
Totally.
Right.
So that's another one too, where the product is like PLG friendly and there is a self-serve opportunity that they want to take advantage of. And some companies that have an open source version of their product, I'm seeing that recently, and then they want to introduce a freemium offering to help with acquisition strategy. Sounds obvious, but if you've got an open source product that a lot of people love, your target audience loves, you're probably going to end up with a portion of people taking advantage of your open source that don't fall into your ICP, that ideal customer, but you probably have a portion that do. And those customers, it would be ideal to get them on a freemium plan instead, so that you've got more of an opportunity to upsell.
Any organization has a culture, whether it's been intentionally formed or whether it's been unintentionally formed. Organizations that start with a primarily sales-led structure are going to have a culture that leans toward sales-led. And it's nobody's fault. It's just a matter of who is on the team and how you acquired your initial customers. So talking about the challenge of moving from a sales-led to a product-led acquisition approach, it's more than just having a quality product that people can get value from on their own.
Right.
There is an entire like people and org part of this process that I think we need to talk about. So I'm going to kick this one over to you.
So if you started as a predominantly sales-led SaaS, like reliant on founder-led sales, or your head of sales was like employee number 2 or something like that, and now you're 5 years into this and you've been successful with this motion so far, that sales team, sales-led implies the company is looking to the sales team for growth. that puts the sales team on a hella pedestal. Right next to dev and engineering is the sales team. Really important and critical revenue generators, like the math is all there and works, and it's becoming a well-oiled machine, for better or for worse. And then all of a sudden you introduce this idea of actually we're going to start leveraging the product-led growth, and we're going to leverage the product, and the product team is going to be part of these like revenue growth conversations, or the marketing team, God forbid. And then all of a sudden the dynamic, like the dynamic of the team has shifted, and that can be really hard. And I have this company that I worked with a couple of years ago where they really had every opportunity under the sun to be product led, and they should have been product led. And this is not the only example of this. I've definitely spoken to other founders and CEOs where this has been the example, where that head of sales is like the CEO's BFF. So the idea saying, hey, you're not going to be at the top of the food chain anymore, or the whatever, that can be really hard.
It's a real threat.
Just for ego's sake, let alone the dynamics of what that changes in the team, and where the leadership team starts to invest in hiring, and it's a massive shift. So if that's your situation, what I would say is, first of all, being aware of that is wildly valuable. Even just knowing going into this that we need to be careful, we need to proceed with caution will help. The other thing that I would say that is critically important is making sure that any sort of PLG motion is positioned to the sales team as like a win for them. This is going to make their lives so much better, so much easier. The calls that they're on are going to be so much higher quality, because these people are already going to have experienced value with this damn thing. And so by the time they get on a call with them, ideally they're just in a situation, they just got to like dot that last I and cross that last T for this team.
Totally. Yes. Rather than speaking with this with this super cold lead and being like, so have you even heard of us? I'm zooming in like on just the experience of a salesperson showing up to a call. But to apply that more broadly, I completely agree with you that acknowledging how challenging this will be, like from a team perspective and culture perspective, and doing everything you can to position it as a win to sales is so critical and can't be overlooked.
Yeah. And can never be positioned as any self-serve customer acquired represents a lead that sales failed to close. They cannot be positioned against each other. And I know Elena Verna has spoken about this as well, like the very tactical ways to set up PLG so that they're actually less, so that it's less threatening to sales, and that and can actually be positioned as a big win for them. So the sales team is definitely the first thing to talk about. Obviously, when moving from sales led to product led, sales team is huge. And there's like people and humans involved, and egos involved, and team dynamics involved.
Emotions.
History, right? Like company history. So it can be big, but there are ways to mitigate it. I know leadership team, you mentioned, Claire, like you recently experienced where the leadership team itself may have said, oh yeah, we want to be more product led, but actually, did you know what you were signing up for?
Yes, there was an organization I was working with for a while, I think almost a year. And the CEO, as an individual, was pretty convinced that introducing a more product-led way of getting into their ecosystem was the way to go. And honestly, as I think through it and I try to put words to it, it's just another iteration of what you described, with sales being core to the team from early on. Another person at the C-suite level it wasn't his title, but it was his de facto responsibility within the team to be like the big guns sales guy. When a particularly like attractive deal came through, or he just like, that was his background, it was his area of expertise. And so he never stated this, but in the process of trying to introduce a more product-led approach that would reduce the burden on his team, it became clear that even though what I was hearing from the leadership team is we want to take this approach, what was actually happening was one person wanted to take this approach, but really hadn't done the work to circulate that and get everyone bought in, which made the change a lot harder. I think that's a really nice segue into what are the risks to what is this actually going to look like? And how does that, if you've got stories of like how this can change the expectations of the marketing team or the product team, I think it'd be super interesting.
I've got one example in my mind's eye where the marketing team of this predominantly sales-led organization was really just at the service of sales. They had always just operated like, okay, yeah,
they're a sales enablement department.
Totally. Which is very similar for a lot of product marketing teams that are at sales-led orgs. Product marketing at a sales-led org means sales collateral.
Sales content.
That's right. Product marketing at a product-led company, very different. Like those two teams are entirely different. And the same goes for the marketing team. And so this company that I'm thinking of, they wanted to leverage more product-led, and the leadership team recognized that, oh, that means that the marketing team is going to be like the responsibilities and the way that the marketing team's performance is measured completely shifts, because now it's about bringing people to the front door, bringing qualified people to the front door, versus the sales team were happy with the sales deck that they pulled together, or the white papers, or traditional sort of more like lead gen stuff that was used for like bottom of funnel or middle of funnel type of marketing activities. Is very different. So that the expectations for marketing shift dramatically. Again, this is a leadership team. The marketing leader at your organization, if you tell them we're moving towards product led, they got to know what that means for their team.
What that means for them.
Yeah. How is performance going to be measured in this new reality? Product as well very much shifts. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've worked with quite a few sales-led orgs where the product owner was actually the founder. And there was no
Oh my God.
Yeah. No product manager, product managers in place.
Founder is acting product manager. Yeah.
That's right. And so that too, for the product team, shifts dramatically, because if you're going to be shifting to a more product-led approach, you need somebody thinking about the product experience every single waking minute of their workday, versus the broad strokes that you as a founder may have been taking earlier.
I hear you talking about the inherent reality of being a founder, which is you have to juggle multiple responsibilities until you gradually shed this one and that one. And it is very common for product management to be one of the very last things that a founder is ready or comfortable to hand off.
So just like you did when you were sales-led and you staffed up on the sales side, if you're going to be product-led, you have to start staffing up on the product side, starting with a dedicated product manager, not just any product manager, a product manager that has worked inside of a company who has transitioned, this is really important, has transitioned from, helped a company transition from sales-led to product-led. They're not a product manager from a sales-led org, and they're not a product manager from a low ACV product-led org. They're somebody who has experienced the move from one to the other and is a highly strategic, highly important to get right. Yeah, in this. So those are like I would say that the common challenges is sales is not properly set up. PLG is not properly introduced to the sales team. The leadership team is out of alignment. And somebody has made the decision to move to a product-led sort of motion, but the rest of the leadership team is not actually bought in. Marketing team is not adequately set up to be anything beyond what was at the service of sales. And so how marketing's role shakes out in the organization becomes completely different. And then the last one that we mentioned, we basically went through all the teams except for customer success. The product team needs like proper product management. If you don't have a product manager who has helped with that transition before, then a product manager that has that background is absolutely needed in this case. I think those four things, sales, leadership, marketing, and product, all need a sort of rethink and a repositioning, and likely some hiring as well, if you're going to move from sales-led to product-led.
Could we talk a little bit about like some of the tangible ways that a company can start to transition from purely sales-led to product-led? So what do the baby steps look like along the way?
Okay, so there's definitely the very low-hanging fruit, least disruptive ways to introduce leveraging product more for acquisition. There's a couple of very tactical things that we can get into. There's also doing some customer research to learn from your customer base to find out where the opportunities lie, and then adequately setting up the sales team from not just a like strategic level or mindset shift level, like we were just talking about, but at an economic perspective as well, so that the sales team isn't cut off at the knees. So those are like the broad strokes, things that I would think about is what are the really low hanging fruit opportunities that you could use to move in this direction. And then there's the, okay, let's actually learn from our customers. What are the opportunities to leverage the product more strategically? And what could like a freemium or a trial based sort of product experience potentially look like, let alone the customer onboarding experience that you layer on top of that, critically important. And then again, is the back to this sort of sales team, like setting up the teams so that they're not at odds, setting up the sales team and the marketing team and the product team so they're not at odds, which might mean bringing in a product marketer once and for all, or a product marketing team once and for all.
There's one on our list that I can speak to because I'm working with a CEO on this right now as like the V1 of them going from founder led to other people being able to take a sales conversation and run with it. So we're not even talking moving into a true product led, letting people get into the product on their own. This transition is, let's start from people booking the demo on your site and showing up to that demo cold to seeing what happens in the product in a video to getting to that demo and being able to be more informed and educated about the product. So first, I think I need to emphasize a point you raised earlier, that doing some research on who your best customers are right now and what aspects of the product drive value for them, that has to be point number one, because that work is what enables your team to understand what elements of the product to help customers reach more quickly on their own. And if we go back to the book and we talk about the audiobooks example, like I know that you and I have discussed this ad nauseum, but it's very relevant for any highly complicated or feature-rich product. There are probably a small subset of features or elements of your product that drive the most initial value, and they are probably buried in a much larger platform. So with this particular CEO I'm describing, they have a product experience like that. They are not an audiobooks to speak about our book, but they are similarly in a situation where their new customers have a moment with a couple of features where they're like, this is it. This is the thing that makes us want to buy. And so we have learned that from the customer research, and I'm now working with the CEO and helping him record just a very lo-fi video. It's not even on the website yet. We're leaving the website and the call to action slightly modified but and improved, but generally as is. But when someone books a demo, they're going to receive a link to this video, and it's going to be the CEO saying, hey, this is me, this is our product. These are the typical challenges we help orgs like yours solve. And now I'm going to point you to where in the product we solve each of those. So if this is your problem, you're going to want to check out this element of the product over here. This is what you can do. Here's what it might look like inside your environment. If you've got this problem, then this area of the product is really going to speak to you and the challenges your org is facing, and so on. You can almost think of it like the CEO is recording not a demo in terms of a super generic walkthrough of the overall platform, but he's like educating in advance potential customers and helping them see themselves in the problems and helping them verify, okay, this company gets the problem that I have. And then in that video at scale, he's connecting the dots to what that's going to look like in the product when it's solved. So this is like the V1 of a more product-led approach where somebody could get into a sandbox account and see that.
The example that you just gave with the video, there's many applications to that beyond what you just described. Yeah. You are describing a situation where the primary CTA on the website is still book a demo and then they're provided this video. I've also seen it and worked with companies where the CTA changes to see how it works. Try it now. I would not use that CTA for a video, but to see how it works and then having a video walkthrough of the product could be a great like first CTA. And then once they've had a chance to see how it works, then they can book a demo. Then the other example that I know that you were just getting to is like this sandbox. So the company that came to mind for me, highly sales-led. So sales-led that like hardware literally needed to be shipped to customers.
Delivered.
Yeah, that's right. I say sales-led. What I really mean by that is like high touch. So their sales process was like a call, and then it was, okay, we agreed for you to send the hardware, and then the hardware, they have to help the team set up not only the software, but also the hardware at their location. And then they've got to help customers to get to first value. It's a very high touch sales process. And when we spoke with customers, a lot of this stuff sounds It sounds very obvious in hindsight, but when were having conversations with customers, they were like, the moment that they knew that this was going to solve a problem for them was that when they could visualize what it was going to look like with their materials. So these were screens for retail spaces and restaurants and things like that. So what we learned in the conversations with customers was that when they could basically visualize their programmatic content and see
Mm-hmm.
how they would be able to control it and how easy it would be to
Right.
change that content behind the scenes. So like what the dashboard would look like and what their content would look like within that dashboard was what the feedback was that we got back. And so with this company, could they have leveraged like a true product-led motion with like a freemium product? There's probably a world where they could launch a freemium product where the hardware is something that the customer sources and takes care of themselves or purchases separately, and it could be a low touch. There's probably a world where they could implement that. Maybe they have by now. I don't know. But what we did with them was basically help them set up what we called like a faux freemium, where on the website, the call to action would be see how it works or sign up free. And they would be signing up for basically a demo account where, depending on their vertical, different content would appear. So if they were a restaurant, they would see content related to restaurants and they would be able to navigate this product, this demo account, as if it was theirs. They could see all of the features. Obviously, we still had to be very careful to not overwhelm them like we would be in any of these situations, but it was a sort of guided experience where they would get to what they cared about very quickly, even just within a demo account, which on the other side of that, imagine what the sales calls are like after that versus the abstract promises being made on the website. So it was a sandbox account. And the best thing about that implementation, I think, was that when we were on the call with the product team, I think the CTO might have been there and the CEO and product manager. And they were like, oh, we have one of those. We have a demo account already that we use on our sales calls. We've already got this. They just needed to move the access to it and provide access to it via gating on their website, but it already existed. And for many of these sales-led organizations, they've already got demo accounts set up. So it's actually not a very high lift from a technical perspective either. So it's like a really great way to introduce a product-led growth without actually going like the whole way. These are the gateway drugs to PLG, basically.
Absolutely. Ultimately, whether it's the lo-fi video that I'm talking about with this one CEO, or it is like more of a sandbox account and a team just having to move that from being something only internally accessible to being visible or available on the website. Really what you're trying to do is help a potential customer who wants more information get that information without gatekeeping the information behind sales.
Yeah.
Which ultimately helps them, but also, to your point, is wildly valuable to the sales team because then these folks are showing up that much more interested, that much more educated, and ready to really get into the meat of the discussion rather than having to start with the basics of how the product works and the rudimentary shit.
Yeah. Like you can't leverage product-led growth without intimately knowing your customers. And by intimate, I don't mean like their spouse's name. Intimate as in what actually matters to them. We talked in a previous episode. I talk to my customers all the time. I know my customers. No, you have to know specifically what parts of your product deliver value and what is it about that aspect of the product and how could you surface that to them and in what order, right? Because it's not just one feature that it matters to your customers. And so you have to do the work to find out what those like product levers are in order to leverage product-led growth in a way that isn't going to, not to be hyperbolic, kill your business, right? Or just flat out fail. No, you have to do it the right way. You have to know your customers. You have to know your solution. You have to know the value that your solution provides to them. And then you have to think strategically about the experience that you deliver to them in a way that doesn't cannibalize your business and that provides them with enough information to then, in a lot of cases, hand raise to sales, which is the other sort of critical component to rolling something like this out, which is setting sales up to be successful. And Elena mentioned like attributing self-service business if they were a sales account or lead and they end up converting as a self-serve, attributing that sale to sales, tongue twister, that is like a really smart thing to do. And then product-led sales also is the really interesting opportunity to layer on top of this as well. So you leverage product-led growth in whatever way that we've described, whether or not it's like a see how it works video, a sandbox account, like some sort of timed trial or freemium version, whatever you end up leveraging to, again, lower the barrier to help people like prove that your solution can solve their problem. Layering product-led sales on top of that is also like that's a whole other body of work that I think probably falls outside of the scope of this, this topic, but that can help to get sales really excited about PLG, because product-led sales can be like throwing gasoline on the fire basically for sales. And so there's a huge opportunity there.
That was super good. We talked about like the challenges, the people issues, like how much team alignment is a critical part of introducing or better leveraging a product-led approach.
Yeah.
No, this was really good. And we'll see everyone next time.
And that's it for this episode of the Forget the Funnel podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions about the topics we covered, don't hesitate to contact Claire or I on LinkedIn. And you can also visit our website at forgetthefunnel.com. This is still a new podcast for us, so ratings, reviews, and subscriptions in your podcast platform of choice make a huge difference. See you next time.